Hey everyone, welcome back to CodeMaarg. In the previous videos, we learned how to insert, select, update, and delete records from the tables. In this video, we will see what is grant, what is revoke, what are DCL commands in detail, and why do we actually need those commands. Let's get into our query tool. Okay, now that we saw what are DDL commands, what are DML commands and all those stuff, now it's time for us to move on to the next set of commands that we have. Okay, now let's say for example you're working in a company and the company is having a database. In simple words, let's say you're working on a company database. Let's say you're working on a company database. There you have something called as students table. There you have something called as students table. You have select start from students. This is the students table that we have. Same, imagine that you are working on a company database that also has something called as students table. Okay. Now tell me, should interns be allowed to delete student records? Or should interns be allowed to drop tables, drop databases? Should interns be allowed to do such expensive operations at the very starting? No, right? Obviously not. Interns should not be given permissions to do expensive operations. So that's where DCL comes into picture. That's where DCL comes into picture. What is DCL? What is DCL? It is data control language. What is DCL? DCL means data control language. DCL means data control language. What are these? These are the commands. These are the commands that controls accesses, securities and permission. These are the commands that controls access, security and permissions. So what are DCL commands? DCL means data control language. So what are these commands? What does these commands do? These are the commands that controls accesses, security and permissions. Now let's see how each one works. What are the commands that's present here? There are two commands. Now let's see how each one is gonna work. I said you all now that interns should not be given permissions to delete or drop tables and databases, right? So how will I know? How will I not give the permission to do all those stuffs? How will I prevent interns to do all those stuffs? It is by creating different roles for different users. Here I should be creating a role called as interns so that intern role have only specific permission access. Have only those specific permission access. So how can I create? Should I be doing? I should be creating a role called as intern. Creating a role called as intern. As the sentence says, what am I doing? I'm creating role. So it is create role. It should be role name. I'm giving role name as intern. So create role interns. Let me run this. It says created role, query written successfully. Now what should I do? If for example when I do select start from students, I'm able to view the students table, right? So this role intern should just be able to view the students table, and this role cannot be given the permission to delete records from this table, to insert records from this table, or to update or modify data inside the table. What role am I giving? I am giving this intern's role to just view the table data. So what should I do? I should grant the access for interns. For what am I granting? I am granting to just view, meaning select on students table. I am giving to which role am I giving this permission? To the role interns. I'm granting permission to just select data and view it of which table? Students table to interns. Let me run this command. So granted successfully. It says granted successfully. Now I am in the normal role. I should get into the intern's role to verify the permissions have been updated successfully or not, right? So what am I doing? I should go into the intern's role. I should get into the intern's role. So set role interns, set role interns. Now let me run. It says query written successfully. Now let's say I want to do select star from students. Now I am able to view the data. Right now Let me try inserting data. Insert permission is something that I didn't give to interns, right? Or let me try deleting data. Okay, delete star from students where student id is equal to 2. Let me try deleting data. So delete permission is something that I did not give to interns. What is the permission that I gave to interns role? I just gave permission to select data, meaning view the table data. Now let's see what this query returns. It says, delete from students where student id is 1. It says error, permission denied for table students, meaning this particular role doesn't have permission to delete the data that's present inside the table. So this is what is called as role. Now sometimes you will have multiple permissions and you will be moving from one permission to another permission. How do you exactly know which permission you are in? To know which permission you are in, you will just have to do select current role. It gives you what current role you are in. When I do this, it says my current role is intern. How do you reset back to your role? How do you reset yourself back to the role? I should do reset role. If I do reset role, it is resetted. Now if I do delete from students where student id is equal to 2, this query is gonna work. The delete command works successfully. I'm not gonna delete this. So that is how this works. We understood what grant is from here, right? Okay, now what and all we did? We created a role called interns. We gave the interns role access to view the table data, meaning we gave select access to it. Then we set the role to be interns and tried selecting or viewing the table data from students table. It worked. We also tried deleting data. It didn't work because it did not have permission to do it, and we resetted our role back. Now what we have to do is, for example, let's say you have multiple roles and you have given some roles some permissions to do something, right? Now let's say at some point of time you will have to revoke that permission back. How do you revoke that permission back? Let's see how do we do that. We should do revoke. Here when we are granting, we wrote grant select access that we are given to students table to which role? To interns role. Again we should do grant select access. Now we don't want the interns role to have the permission to view the data. How do we do that? Revoke select on students table. To which role are we doing this? To interns role. Now let me run this command. It says syntax error, revoke select on to students doesn't work. On students, okay. Where are you? We are revoking from which role that we have? We are revoking from interns role that we have. This should be from keyword. Now it says revoke query written successfully. Now I will again get back to the interns role that I have. How do I get back? Set role interns. Now I am inside the interns role. How do I verify that I am inside the interns role? Using select current role. When I do this select current role, it says which role I am in. Now currently I am in interns role. Now that I've revoked this interns role from this to view the table data. Now if I do select star from students, do you think it allows me to view this table data? Let's see. It says permission denied for table students. Why is it giving this error? It's because we revoked the interns role to have the permission to view the table data. That is why when I do select star from students, it is giving permission denied for table students. Now this interns role that I am in will not allow me to view the data because we have revoked the access to view. So this is something which is not just applicable for select we can also grant permissions for insert, delete, update, whatever commands that we use. We can give access to specific commands that a particular role should do and not a particular role should do. So that is how this grant and revoke works. Okay, now that we have seen how to create a role, grant access for a particular role, revoke access and all those stuff, let's just summarize by looking at the syntax. So how do you create a role? You create a role by using create role and role name. Here we were giving it as interns because that was the role name that we gave. It is create role, the role name that you want to give. So this is the syntax for creating role. How do you grant access for a specific role? Now let's say I'm granting access for the interns role to view the data, to select the data meaning. So I'm using here grant select on table name. Which table am I giving the permission to view the data? To which particular role am I giving this permission to? Here I am giving this permission to interns, so it will be interns. So any role that you want to specify here that you want to give permissions for, you will have to mention that particular role here. So here what am I saying? I'm saying I'm granting the intern's role permission to view the data. So this select means viewing the data, right? So this need not be select. This can also be insert. This can also be update. Any permission that you want that particular role to have, you can insert that here. You can write that here. So how do you grant access for a specific role? Grant what are the things that you want that specific role the permission to have, on which table you should have, to which particular role that you are giving that permission to. So this is how you grant access to a specific role. How do you get into that role? Now you have given the permission to that role. You should get into that role to see if everything is working fine or not, right? So how do you get into that role? You should do set role name. In our case it was interns. So what is the role name that you will be using? You should be giving set role name. Next, how do you verify that you are in a particular role? Now you got into that role. How do you verify that you are in that particular role or not, right? How do you verify that? Select current role. When you do select current role, it will fetch you which current role are you currently in. Next, perform actions, meaning what all actions you need to perform when you are inside that role, you can perform. For example, here we gave the access to select, meaning view the data. Now I can view the data when I am inside the role. I can also try deleting, but you will not be given the permission to delete because you have not given the permission to delete a particular record using this role, right? Next, now that you are inside that role, how do you reset yourself back from that role? How do you do that? You will be using reset role. These are all the commands that we saw. See, we saw how to create role, we saw how to grant access, how to come into that role interns and perform operations and see which role I am in, and again reset role. So these are all the things that we have already done. So just from the point of revising it in the syntax perspective, I've given this. Now we understood the syntax for using grant command. Now let's understand the syntax for using revoke command. So how to revoke access? It is revoke the access that you were granted. What are the access? Like here, I was granted the access to view the data, meaning select. Here, what am I revoking the access? I'm revoking select access, view access. From which role? From the role that I want. Let's say interns. I had granted interns role to view the data. Now I am revoking that back. Revoke, select on which table name you will have to specify. From which role are you trying to revoke this access from? From interns role. So this is how you will be using the command to revoke access. Now, why do we actually want this grant and revoke? What is the purpose of having this grant and revoke commands? So real purpose is security. Data integrity, and RBAC. What do you mean by those? What do you mean by security? You don't want everyone doing everything. As I said, you don't want interns to just come and delete the database, right? So I'm just giving the example of interns. It's not with respect to interns. So everyone should not be allowed to do everything. That is what you mean by security. What do you mean by data integrity? if everyone can modify data, let's say there are 1,000 people in the company who are working on the database, and if all the 1,000 people are allowed to modify data, then mistakes will happen. What do you mean by role based access control, which is also called as RBAC? Different people will have different permissions. For example, if you say college database, will have admins, will have faculties, will have students. Students will not be given the permission to delete data, right? So every role, we have 3 different roles: admin, faculty, students. Every role will have its own different permissions. So what is it saying? Different people should have different permission. Different people will have different permissions. That is what is called as RBAC. So what is the real purpose of grant and revoke? Security, meaning you don't want everyone doing everything. Data integrity, meaning if everyone can modify data, mistakes will happen. Role based access control, RBAC, which means different people having different permissions, should have different permissions. So this is what is the real purpose of grant and revoke. We saw what is DDL, we saw what is DML, and we also saw now what is DCL. So till now we have understood about DDL, DML, DCL commands. We completely understood what's grant, revoke and all. So in the next video, we will see what are TCL commands, what is commit, what is rollback, what is save point and everything else. So if you've understood what's in this video, like, share and subscribe for more content. Don't forget to click on the bell icon to receive notifications. Thanks for watching this video till the end. Bye-bye. Never stop learning. We will catch up in the next one.